welcome to Wild Horse Writes. My name is Sandra, and today we'll be looking at Excel VBA once again. So last time we were here, we basically did a bunch of formatting commands. We want to write a macro that lets us check these rows no matter what size the row is, because on one report it may go to E6, but on another report it may go out to, I don't know, E1000. And every time the report might be different. Now this is okay if you know the range the report is going to be in. Like if you know it's going to be less than like 1,000 each time, you just extend this out to E1000 or G1000 or whatever. But if the size ranges based on the report, yeah, I don't want you to be scared by what you're about to see. It's not scary at all. It's very simple. So I've learned through online research and through the books I have that this command is used like almost universally to do loops and to find the last row in a series. This thing is setting up the sheet. So you set the sheet as worksheet 1. So you basically make a variable. You say this sh abbreviation is going to stand for this worksheet. So let's say if somebody is working on a report and they want to use their macro, but they've already renamed their tabs or something like that. As long as this says worksheet 1, it's going to take whatever worksheet is first. So if I put worksheet 2, it would be this one, worksheet 3 would be that one, and so forth. So it's a lot easier to make a universal macro if you just reference the sheet number than if you reference a specific sheet name. Now the second thing, LR, again, that's abbreviation that somebody used. In the book that I have, someone actually wrote final row, but I'm just using the one the guy had online because it's simple and it's again short. So he put LR, so that's what we're gonna do. And LR is again a variable we set up. So we want to say LR equals the sheet, so worksheet 1 dot cells, so the cells in worksheet 1, and then it says Rows.Count. So basically that's counting all the rows in this worksheet, and it's going by column 1. Anytime you have like if you want to do a reference or something in a cell reference, the rows always come first and then the actual columns come next. So this is going to count the amount of rows in column 1. For example, column 1 is 50, column 2 is 100. So when you run the macro based on column 1, it's only going to have 50 values. And if you try to compare it to something that has 100, it's going to stop at number 50 on this list also. So you'll get only half of your data analyzed. So if your first column is not the longest column and has the most entries, use whichever one is. Basically, this is just telling it to check and see what the last row is, and whatever that is, stop at that row. You can find this in a lot of different macros online, and again, the workbook I have and the jerk book I call it, he has this written as final row, whatever. Now, for I. Now this is a loop. So say you have a container of Q-tips, right? So inside of that I, you want to define what's in it. So we want to tell it how many Q-tips to count. How many Q-tips can you count in the range? So we want to define it as, this is going to be basically where your rows are. So for I equals 2. So this is telling it start on row 2. This basically is saying I want you to analyze everything from row 2 to the end of the sheet, because remember, this LR is the last row. In that I, we have all the rows starting with row 2 up until the last row. So whenever we reference I, we basically tell them to check that whole range. So then we go to our if-then statement. Now, some of you may be familiar with an if-then statement from like formulas, because there's definitely an if formula in Excel, and I love that thing. It's not a macro, but you can use it in the place of a macro. sometimes when you don't feel like doing a macro, or something simple like I have this group number and I want to match it up to this specific product or something like that, and every time group number A matches product A, then I can make an if-then statement using a formula and say, if this is A, then put this product name. Otherwise, if this is B, put that product name B. If this is C, you can make an endless if chain if you want to. And I've done a whole Excel sheet that wrote like letters and stuff with just if formulas. Just like a formula, you have to say if, so you give a condition, and then you say then, and then you give a result of that condition. So what I'm saying in this formula, and by the way, this is a macro for the date of birth that we mentioned in our last video. I'm saying if this range, so this range is specifically on worksheet 1, it's column D and I. So you see this reference where it says A1 to D1 or whatever, right? Well, in this case, instead of saying D1000 or D, because we don't know the actual end of the row, we put the I to basically tell it, keep going until you reach to the end of the row. Because remember, this I is from 2 to the very end of the row. It does D1 in the reference for column D and I. So that means D2, D3, D4, all the way to whatever D. It could be D3000, D20,000, whatever. It's going to reference the last row in your sheet in column 1. So whatever that is, in this case, it would be D6 because that's the last row we have. So D and I, all these things from 2 to 6 is greater than this date. Then, see the little then in blue? I want you to take that row, the entire row where that value was found, and turn the interior color of that row black. And again, I have not memorized the colors. You can find them online. So it is what it is. So you can either use this little color command, or you can do color index like we did last time, whatever. In this case, it's black. And then we say end if. So unlike a formula where you can just drag it and be done with it, you have to tell it. Like in VBA, when you do an action, you have to tell it to stop. So we end the if. So that's all we're testing for. Okay, we're done. Then we say next I, which means it tells it, okay, so for row number 2, check and see if this date, if the date in D2 is greater than 1190. Okay, we're done with that one. How about D3? And it'll go all the way down and check and check and check. So this next I is telling it, okay, check the next cell, check the next cell. And then we have, of course, end sub, which tells us to stop. So I hope I did a good job explaining that. If you don't get it the first time, just go back and replay it. That's the simplest I've ever heard it explained, because when I read all these books, they make it seem like it's rocket science. Like they never tell you what I is. So again, think of I as like a little box, and it has all the rows in the box. All right, we're gonna run this. Wow. So as you can see, let's go back and look at the original data. There was Troll, and he was born in 2013. Just a heads up, for Excel, when you're doing the macro with dates, you have to put this little hashtag by the dates. The way they interpret greater than in terms of date, of course, 2013 is a bigger number than 1990. So what I'm telling it is if anybody was born in a year later than 1990, then please highlight them and cross them out. And you would use this macro for different things. Like, let's say if you wanted to sell a product to somebody at a certain age group, like I want to sell this product to only 45-year-olds because they need colon cancer screenings. You would take your list of people that you want to solicit, and then you would go ahead and apply this filter and change the dates to whatever the date range for 45 is, and then you would run your macro and it would automatically black out any of the people that don't meet the requirement for your solicitation. Or let's say you wanted to do a report and you have to find all of the people that are over 26 in that report. So I need to find people 26 years or older to see what's going on with them. Well, of course, you can, like, I guess, sort the date of birth or whatever, but you can also make a macro that calculates how old somebody would have to be, you know, what year is the cutoff point for 26. Run the macro and it'll automatically highlight anybody that's 26 or older on the sheet. If you follow those steps, which I just explained, or you just typed out the macro, then you've made your own loop for the first time. For your viewing pleasure and delight, I have now, instead of filling this out by myself and having Invisible Fred give answers, I now have Real Fred to help us with this macro video. Okay, this list of favorite foods is my favorite foods. So I'm going to ask you, do you like it?
No. Oh, you mean each other?
Oh, that's the idea. Good job. You're a little bit excited. Okay, do you like this one?
No.
Do you like crabs?
I don't like crabs. I like crab meat.
I'm going to put yes because that's just you being picky. Pizza?
Yes.
How about barbecue hot dogs?
Yes.
Fruit?
Depends.
Veggies?
Depends. But no one. Is that an answer? Yes, if you cook it.
That's exactly what I said.
No, I can't eat those.
No, because he's allergic. And
yes.
Vinegar and salt chips, definitely yes. And tacos.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, let's go back to our macro. When you look at a macro, you often see this dim. Again, that means dimension. And when people do that, they're actually telling Excel what kind of data their variables are, so that it basically doesn't have to think and assume what kind of data you want. If you don't define it for Excel, then Excel will make up it's called a variant. It basically is like sort of things, it just fills in the blanks. So go, oh man, I don't know what this is. What is that? So it'll assume what you meant it to be. So if it sees a date, it'll say, okay, this was supposed to be a date range, and this was supposed to be a range. This was supposed to be a worksheet. So it will assume what it is if you don't have the dimensions listed for it. But VBA is not MacGyver, so it's not great all the time at coming up with things on the spot. So what happens is when it has to run as a variant, it slows the whole macro down because Excel's like, what is this? So again, we went ahead and used that same command. We set the worksheet to the first worksheet here, which, by the way, we're going to have to move this to run it. Okay, then we went ahead and we defined the very last row. So LR is last row. Okay, so remember we had to move it to worksheet 1 because that's where our sheet reference went to sheet 1.
But what if somebody named like the 5th sheet worksheet 1? Some weird reason, would it still follow your place?
You would have to do worksheet 1 in quotation marks.
Okay, gotcha. Lauren, that was fast.
Wow, that's a lot. Well, it may seem kind of colorful. Man, it hurts my eyes. It is colorful, but you could have other shades you can highlight. Let's say if you only really wanted to highlight something yellow or whatever, of course you can do that. But the point is to show you that you can easily format your reports with these like simple tiny macros. That concludes the end of this Excel video. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you don't like this video, don't say anything. If you have any questions or comments,
and if you don't like this video, our name is what is it, Mr. Excel.
Mr. Excel, yeah. Have a good one.
We need to move toward the worksheet 1?
Yeah, move toward the worksheet 1.
Okay, worksheet 1, let's go.